This is kind of a weird question, but can you miss war?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What do you miss?
It's so politically incorrect to say, but you do. You miss war. You miss combat, and it's hard to say that in front of, like a mother who lost her son in combat. But the reality is, you will never grow closer to another human being as you do the people that you serve in combat with. You'll never feel so alive than after those moments where you were so close to being dead. And that's exhilarating. It is. It's why guys come home and get on motorcycles and run down the 405 freeway at 150 miles an hour. It's why guys come back and start, getting into heroin or jumping out of airplanes or, doing any other risky behavior because they're chasing that rush. It's a chemical rush.
Yeah.
And it's addicting. It is. It's really addicting. So, there's a lot you don't miss, but I tell you, there are many moments in any day where I close my eyes and, on the backs of my eyelids, I'm picturing myself lacing up my boots and picking up a rifle.
This is Jake Wood talking, former Marine, 2 deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan. Here's how he describes the modern military veteran.
I always talk about, if you imagine an 18-year-old kid graduating, high school in Omaha and joining the Army right out of high school. He goes to boot camp, gets a uniform, gets training, gets a rank, a title, a mission. The Army sends him to Baghdad. He becomes a leader. He goes outside the wire every day with a mission, with a band of brothers that he knows if he goes down, he's got 10 guys behind him that'll run into machine gun fire to come and get him. And when he comes home from Baghdad, he walks through the airport in his uniform and people slap him on the back and thank him for his service and call him by his rank. And then at some point, 4, 8, 10 years into that, 20 years into that, after experiencing that through the most transformative years of his life, he takes that uniform off for the last time, goes back to Omaha. He's no longer Sergeant Jones, he's Tim. His high school friends have moved on, and they don't understand anything that he's been through. His family doesn't understand anything that he's been through. He gets a job. That job provides him no purpose. Maybe it's menial. Maybe he's in college. Maybe he actually gets a great job. But it probably doesn't give him that same sense of mission. And he looks around and he wonders if anybody would be willing to run into machine gun fire to come and get him.
We know the terrible things that can happen to military veterans. We know about the injuries, post-traumatic stress, alcohol and drug abuse, homelessness, divorce, spiking suicide rates. It's not pretty. And serving as a backdrop for all of this, when veterans get home, it's that lack of purpose that can drive them to the brink. Jake Wood knows this, and he also knows that you can't save everyone, even people you care the most about. Still, he's trying.
I know you don't always get what you want. You call up and you can't let go. Slow down what you can.
This is Crazy Good Turns. We tell stories about people who do amazing things for others. I'm your host, Brad Shaw. Our focus today is Jake Wood. He spent 4 years in combat in some of the toughest places in the world. He's the co-founder and CEO of Team Rubicon, a nonprofit with a pretty straightforward concept. Deploy military veterans as first responders after natural disasters. Earthquakes, floods, tsunamis, tornadoes, wildfires. They bring medical assistance, water, food, tools. Over 100 missions so far. You wouldn't typically say this about a nonprofit, but the Team Rubicon guys are badasses. Their marketing is a celebration of mud, camouflage, debris, tattoos, chainsaws, and sledgehammers. They give their operations colorful, smart-ass names like What the Flood and Coal Miner's Daughter. They curse a lot. They thrive on chaos. And they save lives. Not just victims of natural disasters, but the veterans themselves who are deployed to help. More on that in a bit, but let's start by hearing more about Jake Wood. He was raised in a traditional family, mom, dad, 3 sisters. His dad was in manufacturing and moved the family around a lot. Nebraska, Texas, Europe, Illinois, and finally, Iowa. Jake's a big guy, a lineman in high school who was recruited by Big Ten and Big 12 schools. But even then, he was thinking about going into the military.
Both my grandfathers served. My dad's father served in the Army during World War II. Nothing heroic. I think he was a clerk, but was in France after Normandy and all of that. And my mom's father served in the Navy, kind of between World War II and Korea. Mm-hmm. So he missed both those conflicts. I can't say that it was in my blood just because I've known so many people who are third, fourth generation Marines and all of that. But service, I think, was in my blood. But I don't even really know why. I grew up in the church, and that I think was an influence for me in my early years. But I ended up, deciding that I wanted to be a professional football player. So I took a scholarship offer to University of Wisconsin, which I was playing offensive line at the time, and that's the best offensive line school in the country. They put out more NFL, offensive tackles and guards than anybody else. And so I went up there and quickly realized that I was a pretty football player.
In comparison, right?
In comparison, yeah. And then my freshman year, 9/11 happened. 9/11 was interesting. It was profound for everybody, not just me. But I really felt like I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I remember having a conversation with a kid in high school, a friend of mine from high school, before going to Wisconsin, because he knew I'd always wanted to join the military, and he was asking me how I'd come to the conclusion to forego that and go to Wisconsin. And I remember just saying, yeah, but if there's ever a war, I'll join. But there I was, and the cards were on the table, and I didn't have the courage to do it.
4 years later, Pat Tillman, the former NFL star who joined the Army, was killed in Afghanistan.
And I saw the news, and I just knew that I wanted to be more like Pat Tillman than I wanted to be like who I was. A couple weeks later, I was in a Marine recruiter's office. I went to an Army.
Jake was deployed to Iraq, where he led an infantry squad of 12 guys in Anbar province during the surge. There, he decided he wanted to join the elite scout sniper platoon, attracted to their professionalism and maturity. He made the cut, went to sniper school, and was deployed again, this time to Afghanistan. Jake says Afghanistan was tough, that he could see their mission had no end in sight. He also says he became immune to the violence around him, and that made him uncomfortable.
I had seen a lot of it, lost a handful of really, really good friends. But it was really when I just started to sense that it didn't affect me anymore. The violence. It just, I wouldn't say it was easy. It was just kind of shrug your shoulders at the end of a long day where, you were in a firefight, mortal danger, and you just kind of get immune to it. And if you're able to self-reflect in those moments and be honest with yourself, you're either comfortable with that or you're not. I got to a point where I said, I'm done with it. But I look back on those 4 years of my life, and they made me who I am, and I'm so proud of what we did. And we were able to keep our honor and integrity intact. Yep. And that's, if you can get through 2 combat tours with those 2 things, then you did something right.
So Jake got out and started applying to grad schools to get his MBA. That's when fate stepped in the form of a global human tragedy.
I always tell people it was kind of my second 9/11 moment. Mm-hmm. And my first 9/11 was 9/11, and I was called to action, but I didn't answer it, at least for 4 years. And on this one, I was called to action, and I knew that I had to answer it.
The 2010 earthquake in Haiti left the already struggling country decimated. Hundreds of thousands dead, over 1 million displaced without food, water, or medical assistance.
William was another Marine who I didn't serve with, but had gotten to know via some mutual friends. And, we just saw what was down there and kind of just made the assumption that it was going to be chaos. It was going to be a little bit dangerous, and that they were going to need people who could, make some sense out of that. And we were perhaps overly confident that we could. We, having been in circumstances that were worse in some ways. I mean, there were 200,000 people dead. There's hardly anything that's worse than that. But we'd been in more dangerous situations, sometimes more chaotic situations, and we were able to do some really, really good work.
They took a small team down, already dubbing themselves Team Rubicon. They crossed the border to Haiti from the Dominican Republic and made their way to Port-au-Prince and into a new life. No real plan except to help.
Over the course of 20 days, what became known as Team Rubicon helped thousands of people. We just kind of laughed about the irony of using counterinsurgency tactics to deliver humanitarian aid. And it seemed so odd, but it also made a lot of sense that everything that we'd been doing to run patrols in Anbar province or the Helmand Valley of Afghanistan, most of it could be repurposed to help people.
And help they did all over the world. In the 6 years since Haiti, Team Rubicon's operations have grown dramatically in both scale and complexity. Leveraging cutting-edge technology, social media, and a rabid band of veteran volunteers, they've deployed thousands of first responders to catastrophic events across the globe. Wildfires in Wyoming, earthquake in Ecuador, flooding in Houston, typhoon in the Philippines. And along the way, they're giving veterans the same sense of purpose, community, and identity that so many of them struggle to find post-combat.
You know, we give these guys and gals an exciting mission to help people, to continue to serve in a time of great need, give them the training to do it well. You know, we've built a brand that makes them feel like they're a part of something elite. And through all of that, they feel that purpose. They have a new band of brothers and sisters, and we give them
On that first trip to Haiti with Jake was one of his best friends, Clay Hunt, a former Marine who served with Jake. Clay was a lot like that veteran from Omaha that Jake described in the top of this episode. After 2 tours of duty witnessing much of the same violence and loss as Jake, Clay came home a lost soul, suffering from PTSD and the panic, depression, insomnia, and guilt that come with it. He got divorced, dropped out of college, took a menial job. Clay didn't make it. With Team Rubicon still in its infancy, Jake says, there just weren't enough missions to engage Clay. There wasn't enough meaning in his life to provide an antidote to the troubles he was facing. He took his own life.
And the analogy I used was that was like each of those things were adding, you know, an inch of water to a capsizing boat. But what killed Clay was when he just stopped wanting to get up and bail water. You know, and you can always get up and bail water if you have a reason to. And he just lost that reason. He lost his purpose. And I see people do it. My battalion from the Marine Corps has the highest suicide rate of any battalion in the military. No idea why.
Clay, as it turned out, was representative of exactly why Team Rubicon needed to exist. It's as much for the veterans as it is for the communities they serve, and Clay's impact on the organization can still be felt today. The day I interviewed Jake was the 5th anniversary of Clay's death.
I sent a note out to the team, you know, the whole national staff today, and kind of, you know, talked briefly about what today meant. It's not to dwell on today or the pain of 5 years ago, but really it's cool to look around in the organization. The vast majority of our 400 leaders across the country have never met Clay. But it's important to tell them, you know, some of these things that are baked into our culture, you know, Clay has his fingerprints on, you know, whether it's our foolish optimism that the organization absolutely has imbued all throughout it, or just the attitude of you know, getting the work done with a smile on our face regardless of the circumstances. Those were hallmarks of Clay. It's important, I think, to point that out to people, that, you know, he kind of lives on through the spirit of how we attack things, and so it's cool.
Several years ago, Team Rubicon created the Clay Hunt Fellows Program, a 12-month program that teaches leadership training and skills to help military veterans succeed in the civilian world. It's selecting its 4th class now, and the program has its own cult following inside Team Rubicon.
You know, not only do we have Team Rubicon tattoos floating out there, we've got Clay Hunt Fellows Program tattoos out there now, which, you know, I see this silhouette of Clay tattooed on somebody's body, and it just makes me laugh.
Clay couldn't beat the demons he faced from the wars he fought, but Team Rubicon gives Jake hope that many more will.
I see a lot of people overcoming a lot of tragedy. I think what I wrote today online was, we usually can't avoid tragedy, right? All that matters is what we do afterward. And you know, I've really started to cling on to this idea of post-traumatic hope, or post-traumatic growth. What I experienced, what I saw, what I did in Iraq and Afghanistan made me a stronger person, made me more resilient, made me braver, it made me more loving, though maybe my wife would disagree, I don't know. You'd have to ask her. And I see it in a lot of people, and I see a lot of people who are foolish enough to think that they can change the world at TR. I mean, they are. They're foolish enough to think that they can change the world, and they're stubborn enough that they might have a chance.
Every day I get
I'm Brad Shaw, and thanks for listening to this episode of Crazy Good Turns. Go to crazygoodturns.org to learn more about Team Rubicon and submit your ideas for extraordinary people and organizations we should feature. You might have noticed we found some great music to support our podcast, and we've provided a Spotify playlist of the full tracks on our website so you can take a longer listen, which we hope you'll do. And if you're a band with a song we should consider featuring, you can submit it on our website too. Crazy Good Turns is audio engineered by Stephen Key. Music supervision and mixing by Score in Los Angeles. And a special thanks to Megan Basinger. We hope you like our podcast and help us out by sharing us in your social networks and giving us a review on iTunes. Take care and let's connect again soon.
We were sent to a home of a 92-year-old World War II veteran, Mr. Lewis. Now that joker didn't seem 92, as he kept trying to help us even though I insisted he sat down and rested. I never thought doing something like this would break me down to the point it did. I had such an amazing time helping these victims and wished nothing but the best for them all. As I headed to the airport for my flight back home to Atlanta, all I could do was think about Mr. Lewis and plan on returning later this year to sit down and chat and see how he's doing. I would like to say thanks to Team Rubicon and all that you do, and it's been an honor to serve beside all my Rubicon brothers and sisters. God bless you all and continue bridging the gap.
Thank you ever so much for all your people, for what you do, and remembering an old veteran. Thank you very much.
Mr. Lewis. No, that's okay, sir. We appreciate your service as well, and we are glad to be here and help you.
Thank you very much.
It's an honor to do this for you. Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you doing this for me.